And we're back and we're live. I was gonna do the boxing intro, but I'll do it when it's boxing, to be honest. Like when there's actually a big fight. Oh, there is a big fight. Anthony Joshua's fighting this week.
Man,
So I'll
I'm
do it.
looking ripped.
Yeah, we'll do it. Oh yeah. We're training him hard. You know, I'm gonna put a picture up before and after very, very soon. I love putting up athletes before and after pictures when I've never coached them. But the amount of traction I get from it, my goodness. I'll just keep it going, basically. So Joshua's looking in prime condition. Nathan took over the training. I did the nutrition. We're peaking. And we're excited for that. But we literally started with a hot debate on episode 9. But before we started recording, we talked about breakdancing. And I know it's slightly relevant, but it's not relevant. But let's dive deep into breakdancing. And Nathan, you had a hot take on this. You had a hot take on this. Let's go for it.
We were talking about Emily Shoot again. It seems to be the hot topic of every single podcast that we do. She hasn't even done it. It's like it's in 2022, but you know, is it in 2025? But every single week we're going to milk it until 2025.
Until one of us hit the shoot.
Yeah, and I hit the gas mark because I remembered that this week the Olympics had included breakdancing into the Olympic sports, and for me, I don't think something like Strictly Come Dancing should be an Olympic sport. I think Strictly Come Dancing could be on ITV or BBC or wherever it is, and anything like that. But I understand the need for competition, and that's what it is. But it's not really sport. It's an expression of art, no?
Yeah, I believe exactly. It's very, very difficult to mark a score when it's your own expression of like what it is. Like Strictly Come Dancing, you get a score out of 10, I believe, right?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in about 10 years. So I have no clue right now, but I believe you get a score out of 10, and it's different dances that you do, whether it's like Latin or I don't know, but it's loads of different expressions, and then you have to kind of score it up. So this one's a bit, I don't know, breakdancing. How do you like measure the score line, basically?
Well, if you would go and look at something like ice skating, it would be exactly the same thing. You have the technique, you have the drills, you have the skills, you have the pirouettes and the flips and whatever. And then there will be a component of expression to it as well, right? Which will be included into how they perform into the music. So, I mean, I'm all pro for having dancing as a sport, and there's been such a debate for years, but I think dancing is a sport, because obviously what then is a sport? Something that, what would you then qualify it as a sport?
Kick a ball in a goal.
Some posts.
The fastest wins.
No, but you know what I mean? If you would actually say like bullet point, what does sport mean? Then I think dancing would come under the same bullets if you actually ask yourself those questions.
But I'm like, can you imagine Stella McCartney designing the GB break dancing leotard?
100%.
I don't even know if baseball caps are allowed in the Olympic sports, because you got to be swagging that out, surely.
Why baseball caps though?
Because everyone that breakdances wears a baseball cap now. This is one of the. It's like that's like a social stigma for breakdancing. Probably going to get.
But maybe that's why they want to put it into the sport community, because then obviously retail and merch, right, will go skyrocketing.
Jordan wants to sponsor breakdown.
It's all about the money, So, yeah. I think that's exciting. Obviously, I don't know if you've ever gone to see a dance competition. It's fucking exciting. So, yeah, and you have to really take your hat off for these skilled people who can do what they do. So yeah, I mean, I'm the pro dance for Olympics. Here we go. Yes, maybe I'll.
Fair enough. When you put it like that, with the ice skating, totally understand. I just relate back to my own.
Do you know, like, how many ice skaters do you know in the world, and you're like, that person's the GOAT? Like, I don't know one. I could walk past one right now and be like, I don't know if that's an ice skater or not.
Were you ever interested in ice skating? Could you do the same with curling?
That's my point. Who is interested in it?
Could you be like, oh, that curling master?
Yeah, apart from every 4 years, you remember one person, and then that's it. It's like Olympics. Who remembers most, apart from Usain Bolt?
Michael Phelps. Usain Bolt,
Mo Farah,
Mo Farah,
Mo
Paula Radcliffe, because she had a poo on the side of the road. That was
Farah.
really
She's
recent.
ran a marathon.
Yes, marathons are in the Olympics too. And then, and that's it. Like Steve Redgrave in the rowing back in the day.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And the rest of them, not a clue.
That's not
but that's just us rather than them. That's definitely us rather than them.
We're just being controversial.
I'm just, you just relate back to your own breakdancing career on the dance floors of like Strawberry Moons in London, and you're just like, how is this a sport if people are playing it in the middle of Strawberry Moons on a coloured dance floor? And that's all I've ever done. So I don't really know the mechanics. I just thought, kicking a ball in a goal, running as fast as you can, throwing something as far as you can, is my Olympics really.
So your perception of Olympic is that, right?
So. Yeah. Who's the fastest wins? Who the I don't really relate who's got the best pirouette as an Olympic gold medal, but that's just me rather than anyone else.
Well, anyway, let's.
We're supposed to have the Olympics this year as well, right? You've got
supposed to be in Japan, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, we're gonna have it next year then.
Yeah.
It's Paris 2024 as well.
Amazing. Right, so shall we dig into our topics for today?
Before that, though, I nearly got hacked as well. Similar to Emily. I don't know what's going on, by the way. Like, I think they're like targeting fitness professionals. It wasn't even hacked. It was just like, it was a normal number. And I got like, here's HSBC. Your HSBC account is now like hacked or whatever. And I'm like, I don't even have a HSBC account, which is how wild it is right now. They're just targeting anyone and everyone. And then it's like, here's a link. Didn't click on it, obviously, but just screenshot it. And I thought, you know what? This is great.
Yeah.
They're back at it.
There was a link on the. Kunal sent it to me. It was an Instagram post, and the guy like saying, "Oh yeah, it's something like HSBC." But then when you click on the contact, he had just his face there. He'd obviously remembered that it was his phone, and he was hacking people from his phone that had a picture of him as the contact. It was hilarious. So he was one of the obviously not so great ones. Anyway, today's topic is the element of fad diets and what actually a fad diet is and what is perceived as that. Bergie?
Oh, so who's that? Yeah, so what did we actually talk about here before we started put record down, right? A fad diet would be something that people enter or start with the goal of trying to quick fix their problems in terms of how much body fat they have on them, or body weight for some people, how they would measure it. But and then what we said, I don't know, should I say it straight away what I just said? I think
yes, absolutely.
Everything that we do in terms of coaching is like what is applicable to the client. So sometimes if we're going talking about keto or low carb, that is really applicable for some people, whereas for other people it is not. But it doesn't make it a fad because it's thoughtful, it's thought out, and it's applicable. So that's why the coaching comes in, and we decide what is the best approach for each and every one of our clients. Whereas if someone is out there listening thinking that new year, new me, I'm going to cut out all my carbs and sugars because that is the thing I believe is going to give me the result, then that is what we would classify as a fad diet. And this is really what we're going to like talk a little bit more about today.
Yeah, it's that element where you enter something without looking at the question of will this work in 6 months, or will this be something I can do in 18 months time, and with the view of getting those short-term results and then returning back to what they did before. A lot of people will inadvertently start something that they will never be able to continue in the long term. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad selection or choice or method, but it's just a poor method for those that actually want to keep it off in the long term and don't want a yo-yo diet. You can get excellent results on a fad diet. A lot of people do get excellent results on fad diets, but it's the people that actually keep them off is where it's a transition or away from a fad into a lifestyle. And that's going to be the super critical part of whether you start a diet or you're part of one now, and you're like, just ask yourself, you know, if tomorrow came and I said I'm off a diet, how would I eat? And if you're not aligned with that way of eating, then it will always kind of come unstuck. We spoke about keto beforehand, and it was like, you know, keto is not a fad diet if you're going to do it for the next 50 years of your life. It's just an eating way. It's a solution to eating. It's just a different way. You might feel great on it, but you've got to commit to it. Otherwise, if you do it for 12 weeks or 16 weeks, and then you have no intentions of continuing on keto afterwards, and you like your burgers, you like your carbs, you like your sugars, then you are setting yourself up for the ability, or the high probability, that you will yo-yo in weight management, or have a difficulty keeping or finding a new diet right for you, or a lifestyle nutrition right for you.
Can I just jump in there?
Go on.
Because obviously I wanted to challenge that with the whole thing about sticking with something for long term. I think it's completely fine to go keto for short term because it is effective when done properly. But it's the mindset behind going into something and then knowing how to transition out of it if it isn't something that you want to do by choice for long term. Because there are, for some people, a beneficial way of living, but for everyone, it's not something that is, first of all, beneficial long term in terms of if you're looking what you might want to achieve in the gym or aesthetically elsewhere. And I think that is really what we want to separate there, is like, you can do something short term. It's the same as going into a diet. You can go into a diet short term to get a result, but how do you transition out of that diet to stay where you are and maintain some level of results and sustainability to all of those achievements?
1000%, you hit the nail on the head there. And the transition, we'll talk about the transition, because that is the most important part, right? Is that, you know, anything's a diet, anything's a lifestyle, but it's making that mindset shift to being like, okay, this is what we did for a short period of time, but what is it that's going to keep me long term? What is it that I need to do from my lifestyle, environmental perspective, social perspective, cultural perspective? These are all the factors that go into lifestyle. A diet is how more disciplined, how long you can starve yourself for in a specific manner with amount of food. But a lifestyle is about, you know, it's more like playing chess, as Kunal would say. It's like playing chess, but diet's like playing checkers. It's quite over the top. It's really easy to get, but chess is a game of moving parts, and different things do different things. And that's where, you know, you play a different game. Now, for most people that are not that, it's more like common knowledge, or that common thought process, which is flawed, is that they go, oh, what I'll do is I just continue what I'm doing, but then I'll just have a few extra meals at the weekend. That's what they think is a lifestyle. Or they think that, oh, I'll just keep on doing what I'm doing, like in a low calorie state, and I'll just have a few extra snacks on top. Whilst that methodology sounds great, where you're like, oh yeah, well, I'm in a diet, so then if you eat extra more, then it go up to maintenance. It's not actually a lifestyle. It doesn't give you strategies. It just gives you a bit of a pass to go and eat like a bit of a penis on a Saturday and Sunday, and then come back into your diet. And like, you know, if it fits your macros, or, you know, dieting during the week and then eating like a penis at weekends, is only going to lead to a point of, it'll be great for 1 or 2 weeks. You'll probably not go up on the scale weight too much. You'll probably be like, yeah, I've cracked this. And then 3 weeks come by, 4 weeks come by, your weeks don't turn into diets, and your weekends get even bigger. And then you're just back at square one. And that's where the common thought process is. But what I want to ask you guys is, what is the real transition that needs to happen from a diet to a lifestyle, both nutritionally and mentally? Okay.
So mentally, I actually think it's making that identity switch, which we spoke about last week, from the get-go, rather than essentially coming in thinking, I've got 3 months and I'm going to be losing so much body fat, I'm going to be doing this. Instead, think about, you know, will this be sustainable for me in 5 years time? Because ultimately, even let's say, even with us coaching people, right, someone can come in short term and, you know, they'd be like, oh, this was a fad diet for me, for example, right? Because it is still a short-term fix for them. So it's your mindset that can be fixed, in my opinion, first. And you've got to think long-term. And I know it's difficult because in fitness, it's always been short. If you think about it, anything in like, we see 25-day programs, we've seen 12-day fixes, we've seen, you know, loads of different things with people, which just signals very short-term. I've never seen someone do, okay, we're gonna have a 3-year plan for you. It just doesn't sound sexy, right? It just doesn't sound great. So I think for a lot of people, it's making that shift, especially a lot of people right now who are going to be listening to this potentially in January, you know, they're about to kickstart their fitness journey, and they're looking at it and thinking, you know, January is a hotbed of, you know, I'm going to start now, and then hopefully I'm good till March or whatever, April, and then summertime arrives, they've got more socials and they've got something going on. So you've got to start as soon as you basically kickstart with a coach or a program, and be like, is this sustainable for me long term, and what do I need to do in order to shift that? That's the real key.
It's which components stay, and the intensity that they stay at is one thing that someone needs to get their head around from a mental perspective. Because, you know, some people say, oh well, you give me 20,000 steps in week 10, you know, I can't do that for the rest of my life. It's like, no. The principle of steps is the key part. The principle of looking after your nutrition and being a bit more conscious with your accuracy, the principle of training and showing up consistently, and the principle of looking after your lifestyle, they're all things that will stay. The modulation of intensity will depend on your goal, where you like it to be, and how much you want to eat on a day-to-day basis. You know, if you want to eat 3,000 calories and you're 5'5" every single day, you're gonna be doing, you know, 20k steps every single day if you enjoy that. But, you know, a lot of people go through that process of like, okay, well, it's the method. So those little things that go in daily, how intense do I want them in my life? And some people are just like, I just want 10k steps. It's easy now. It's habitual. I don't want to go any more than that. Some people enjoy more. And it's that modulation, right? That often people say that challenge that thought process that you had, where it's like, oh, you need to do something now that's sustainable, that is, that you can see yourself doing in 5 years. And someone's like, well, I don't see myself doing 1,200 calories for in 5 years time. It's the principle and the modulation of intensity that will be key here, rather than 20k or the figures that are in it.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on the nail there. That's sometimes the hardest thing for people to get. It's not actually the number that we give. It is really the thought behind what happens going into having a number. And yeah, super interesting. Super interesting. I think, you know, also the whole thing about mind, unless you do have an audit of your mind before you enter something, at the end of it, you might have felt like it all was just a temporary thing. And something that people need to realize, if they want long-lasting thing, is really like that day you decide, we said this last time as well, that day you decide is really the day you start to change who you are. And it's small steps, 1% here, 1% there, but over time, that new so-called lifestyle is going to be there and it's going to be embodied. But if we're always just thinking, oh, until this point, then I go back, that is really where people fail. And again, jumping on fad diets, is like, okay, until I've lost 10 kilos, I'm going to stick with this, and then I'm coming off it, and then I'm going to go back to my old ways because I liked my old ways. And really, that is the transition where people need to go like, cool, get it. Some things gonna have to stick, the principles, as you just said, Nathan, then some things I can start to learn to incorporate, and at what time, how often, what intensity, etc. Yeah, super good.
Yeah, don't think of fitness as like a on and off switch. It's like, you know, you do it every other 6 months. It's like, okay, let me turn it on now, and then let me turn it off. It doesn't work, because ultimately that's what happens that's why fad diets are in play, basically, because you end up doing that. You end up doing okay, you know what, it's January, great, I put on some 10 pounds during Christmas. What do I now need to do January 1st or January 4th or whatever? I'm going to kickstart this new plan that I've seen on Hello Magazine, for example. Right. And I think we can probably dive deep into that, actually, where like previously it was the magazine culture that probably kickstarted this for a lot of people. And obviously now it's social media, but I actually think social media now isn't as bad when it comes down to this, unless you follow the wrong people potentially. I wouldn't know, because obviously I try and follow probably the right people, and for most people it's very much educational. So I think now it's completely, like, if you look at 10, 15 years ago, the whole magazine culture would have been like, get ripped in 30 days, or it was lose 10 pounds in a week. Right. So I think that also, you know, was a great way for people to buy in. People would subscribe to magazines because they knew there was a new plan coming out pretty much every single week.
Yeah.
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 You know, something else thinking about earlier before we actually started recording as well, about fads and conditioning as well, and obviously like being a woman. And I was just thinking, I was thinking from my own perspective, because I've never really dieted before I got into fitness and actually wanted to challenge myself to just push myself and my capabilities and what I could achieve. So I was never the child who was on different diets or like chosen to go on diets when I was a teenage. Okay, I was like the skinny fat girl, but I wasn't, but I was never the one who was conditioned to go on diets. But then I realized, and I think this is especially true for women, because the sports, as we were talking about sports, the sports that many women choose to go into, they are required to have an extreme physique in terms of leanness, say it's ballerina or it's an ice skater. And therefore, it's almost like something has been passed down through generations, because there are the women who have had their own food issues and anorexia, bulimia, and all of these things. And they will go on and be teachers and teach the same structure, because it's kind of like the conditioning of a culture. Yep. And I just thought about it because I've had so many conversations over the past couple of years, and I've trained many women who've done ice skating or dancing or something similar, and they all have been conditioned to think about dieting in a way that it's just absurd. And therefore, like, the fads become this thing that people just believe so hard in because it's so engraved into people's minds. And I just thought about it and I thought, wow, it's actually so sad. that was, it just came up to me, and I just needed to share that as well. So
the 100%, I'll go on that as well, is first of all, that's why breakdancing shouldn't be part of the Olympics. Negative for dieting culture.
No, I don't think breakdance and dieting is the, we talk ballet, like ballet. No, yeah.
Get the leotards, any leotard out, get them out. But because I've been part of gymnastics since I was like 8, and also coached people with gymnastics, like all of them had eating disorders, and it was all because of the culture of needing to be 4'5" and lean. And you won't see gymnasts now over the height of like 5'6", because they're not bred for that, and it's effectively like a breeding culture. It's like getting a dog. I was in a part of like Northwest team in the UK, like looking at the people that are going into that. It's like, nah, too big. She's going to get boobed when she's older. That's not going to be good. These women, like girls that were 14, like fitting in leotards, are trying to be like 12 years old, and the smaller the better, which is just crazy, which is not great at all. But I also think that conditioning is just happens by nature of someone buying a fitness plan. And I'll tell you why, is that people presume, because of the last 20, 50 years, that doesn't matter what it says on the paper, doesn't matter that you're on the Loom video or you're on the video saying this is not super restrictive, you have choice here, you have this and this, they'll already go into that thinking that they have to be super hardcore, they have to be 100% disciplined, and they have to restrict everything else because of what they've conditioned themselves to before. And actually having that coaching experience, having that ability for someone to say, no, that's what your limiting belief is. You believe that dieting has to be restricted, and wherever you've come from before is actually limiting that, whereas I've actually said that you should be flexible and you should have these variations. And a lot of that dieting culture, people will come in and say, yep, I'm ready to be hardcore, I'm ready to be 100% disciplined, and I'm ready to give up everything. And I'm on the call saying to them, nope. Well, that's stupid, because that's not going to work. You're eating Maltesers on a Thursday night now, and you enjoy doing that, and every single time you're not on a diet, you go back to eating Maltesers on a Thursday night. We should just teach you how to eat Maltesers without you going over your calories. That would solve half your problems. And then you'd look at your other scenarios of where you're going over, and you'd solve that problem. And you don't need an extra restrictive diet to rein you back in. You don't need to be reined in. You need to find a solution. And more reining in only leads to more wanting to go off the leash and run as far as you can away from the leash. So that's what they're conditioned to. And it's almost like you have to start with a client that's like that, and very much like break down that their pre-existing limiting beliefs of what this dieting mode is supposed to be like.
It's also with coaches as well in the fitness industry. If a coach, for example, because fitness industry is a weird one as well, that you can just come in, you get like a result yourself, and you just come in, and next thing you're a coach, and then suddenly you may be coaching 10 people. Now, if that coach said I was successful with the keto diet, or I was successful with this, but they're not really understanding what the client comes in with and says, they've struggled with, let's say, low carbs in the past, but it's like, no, I've done keto, it should work for you. So I've also seen it from that perspective as well, where it also comes down in the fitness industry. It starts from all of us as well, where unless if you're still married with that kind of diet, or if you're still married with that nutrition pattern, it's still going to be quite tough for you to get rid of. And then on top of that, telling your own clients like, yeah, by the way, this is the best way to go with it. Because I've heard situations in the past where coaches have been like, yep, this is the best thing for you. And this is what we should be doing, because this is where you'll be able to lose most body fat. But again, it's not sustainable in the long term. And I think that's something that I think now we're seeing some good changes to it. I don't know if it's going to be like wholesale changes to it, because I can say even for me, obviously I've said I've done paleo in the past, but I quickly, was like unmarried to that straight away. And I was like, there's no way this is going to be sustainable. And I don't think I've ever gone to that method with clients now and said, okay, let's go straight with the paleo. And this is what's going to be successful for you because it worked for me when I was 17. Just doesn't.
I think the coaches who are so adamant that there is a one best thing, they are usually the ones that lack the education and understanding of physiology, I think, as well. Like, how do you take someone from where they are and what they maybe need? And also, I'll bear in mind that what we do as coaches, we do our best guesswork all the time, and then we adjust the plan accordingly. Like, that is really what it is. It's not this works best, this. It really is, okay, this is what I believe based on experience and based on what I understand and physiologically adaptations in nutrition and training. And then we're going to try it, and then we're going to make changes if we have to. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, we're going to make some changes. So, yeah.
At the stock market, same thing. Put some money in, and it goes up and down. And even if you have to enter the stock market to make money, but by entering it, you don't know whether it's going to go up or down. It's a risk. And like with anything like that, not everything is a calculated risk, because it might not work for you. That's absolutely okay. But it might work for you, and then you just make your next purchase. You make your next investment, because that will be better than the first one, and you'll learn from the first one that you made, and then you'll move on to the elements. Obviously, fortunately for us as a scientific community, we know some things that are ultimately precursors to X plus A plus B equals C. There are some formats that you can, the principles that you can utilize, but the rest of it around like getting clients to stick to something, and the right diet format and the right lifestyle for each person, that's completely ultimately trial and error and guesswork. Like, you can have a basis of rationale, but you've got to go off logic and common sense and environment and culture, as opposed to, oh, but this amount of macros or this amount of carbs is best for you because of this and this, because we ultimately don't know until it's put in place.
Yeah, and also, as we always say, like, it's all a journey. So whatever is optimal versus practical, we have to kind of start with the practical and work towards optimal, because someone might need time to adjust to the changes that they're already put under. So yeah, 100% agree with that.
What's the latest, I won't call it, like, yeah, what's the latest fad diet that we've seen? Like, is intermittent fasting like the thing now? I wouldn't call intermittent fasting like a fad, but I've seen people make it in a way that it's like, I'm doing intermittent fasting now, and I'm getting results or whatever. And I don't know what it is now, because I just haven't paid attention to it. But I'd love to know. So if someone out there is listening to this, would be wary of certain things, or whether it's short term for them or long term sustainability. But yeah, let's go on that. I think it'll be good to.
I think the community now of socials and where people get their information from, it's so handpicked that actually everything has a space in the internet, right? Everything has a reach. So I don't think there is specifically one. I think all of these would all crop up based on the pockets of people that you speak to and the pockets of social communities. I had a lady who signed up because she has seen a brother got a great result or whatever a couple of years ago, and she was doing Cambridge diet, and she'd done every single diet underneath the sun, and and they're all very much the same, and they all come with the same principles. So we actually had to, this would be quite interesting for people, is that, when you're doing something like that, you almost have to, you play different rules. With that type of stuff, you expect drastic weight loss. You expect that you should have no energy, feel like crap, you should be hungry all of the time. You expect those elements when it comes to like the Cambridge and whatnot. And it's amazing how quickly, once you give those principles of normal eating and some education and some support and help them change their limiting beliefs, then they realize that, they've done, that they've wasted 20 years of their life trying to get in shape by doing these fads. And I would just, it's always going to be based on their marketing. I don't think there is one specific one, but they all come down to the same conclusion. And I think at least once in your lifetime, if you've been dieting for like 10 to 15 years, there will be a point of where you say, sick or tired of this anymore, tried another one, I can't do this. And then you look for a solution that is different. And at that point, that's when you actually get the solution that you're wanting, which is the long-term solution without the, the 2 kilo drops every single week, and without the, limiting every single food source that you should do. But a lot of people just have to go through the ringer of that, because there hasn't been many people that have been promoting that over the last God so many years. Now there is more people, like you mentioned. There's a lot of us that are promoting both, like, short-term transformations, or short-term physical changes, and then a long-term mental change that allows you to have a lifestyle afterwards. But that's only through the evolution of the personal training industry or the fitness industry, getting to that point where more people are standing up for what they think is right, and seeing people go down that negative path of seeing people in 10 years and not really recognizing them because they've gained 50 kilos, which is crazy. I don't know if you've ever had that with any of your clients, but I had that once 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Sat in prep waiting for this client to come and have a little chat. Didn't recognize her. She when I seen her, she was 60 kilos, and when I met her, she was 110.
Jesus.
And at that point, like, you could see that she knew like, she was embarrassed to see me because I had seen her at 60 kilos, and I was just like, oh shit, we need to change things. The whole things need to change. And so it's crazy.
I think you're right about the Cambridge diet. I think one of the things I've seen with a lot of people who've done, like, say, those very short-term fixes, and it's dramatic drops as well, right? It's 2 kilos, 3 kilos a week. They've almost married to that method because they know that works in that moment. So they, like, I remember, I vividly remember this. I had a lady come to me, and she basically done the Cambridge diet. But as soon as I gave her, like, my caloric intake, she was like, this is way too much for me. Like, I was used to being on 1,000 calories, for example. Why am I on this amount? She's still in a deficit, mind you. And she still dropped 2 kilos that first week. We all know it's water weight, but it's nothing crazy. But she still couldn't believe that she was eating that much food. And she was still flabbergasted that she ended up leaving, because she was like, no, there's too much food for me. And it's just interesting because sometimes, you may someone listening to this right now may have done that, may have gone through that Cambridge method, or may have gone through certain protocols. But for you, it's about understanding, like, again, even the Huel fast or whatever. There's loads of different ones now where people are using, these meal replacements. Is it sustainable for you in the long term? Is that your solution? Because if it is, great. If it's not, and it's not, and you're looking for, like, loads of different coaches and looking for different solutions, then we know it's not for you, right? The Cambridge is not for you. A meal replacement fast is not for you. It's just about understanding what you want to get out from this. And do you always want to be in that constant yo-yo of, like what Nathan said, that lady being 60 to 110? That could easily be you. I know it's an anomaly, but you could easily still fluctuate between 10, 15 kilos and look completely different. And I think that's quite important as well, that, don't be married to it as well. If you have had success with, let's say, Cambridge, and you've dropped 24 kilos or whatever, realizing that again, and you're back at 20 kilos gained already within 6 months, then you knew that there's something wrong with this, and there's a very potentially a mindset issue as well at the same time. But we can definitely keep on diving deep into that, to be fair.
Yeah, man. Just thinking about all the people that you feel like what if they would have done it right from the start, or got the help right? Obviously, no one ever has a bad intention, and even people jumping on a fad diet, they have good intentions, but good intention doesn't always give a healthy outcome, or the outcome that everyone wants. So yeah. So I guess the wish for everyone listening to this is like, decide to do things right and take the route where it's actually sustainable long term, and looking at the mindset, because it really is mindset. And something that I've just been writing so much about lately is that whole thing about going into something and having the right mindset to what you demand of yourself, but also the right mindset of like wanting more for yourself. So it's like a bit of like self-care, but also a self-responsibility. It's like we can't that you can't really get from anyone else. You can get all these plans or work with a coach, but unless you actually tick off those two, responsibility and self-care, then the risk is that you're going to fall back and find a new solution because you were unwilling to actually look at those two things first.
100. That's a bar. And you know what, funny enough, I did an Instagram on this morning on discipline versus compassion, but it's all about, you mentioned there about responsibility, and I called it standards. Like when you change your body, change your life, change your shape, change everything that you do from a habitual standard, you get new standards. And you've got to make sure that when you're doing something, the standards that you have, although they are hard to keep to, because it's much easier. You know, there was a famous post going around a couple of months ago. It's hard being fat, but it's also hard being lean. It's hard being healthy. It's hard being eating McDonald's every day. You just got to choose your hard and choose the standards that you want to have. And that's where the self-care comes in. And so, like, self-care can be also known as discipline, but it's much easier to say self-care because you're looking after yourself. Self-discipline and self-care is where you do the right thing for the standards that you have and the things that you want from your life, as opposed to the thing that's the easiest. Because self-care isn't like all just staying in bed and just chilling every single day. Sometimes self-care is actually saying, okay, well, I want to get up and I need to go and do my steps because I want this other goal that I have, and I will elevate my life. So you've got to be careful that you don't give yourself too much compassion, or too much, in quotes, it's probably self-soothing as opposed to self-care, and that the level of discipline or standards that you have for yourself change over the long term. And that'll be something that comes because 90 kilo guy standards will be different to a 60 kilo guy standards, but you don't go and make the jump to 60 kilo guy standards straight away. Every kilo that you lose, you get more enforced with the standards that you want. And by 10 kilos, you've got standards of, like, you know, doing 10k steps every single day, being more active, eating better foods, understanding food a bit better. And then by the time you've made those jumps down to where you want to be, those standards have improved so much that if you've done it the right way, they will become your new standards. And it's your responsibility to hold those and hold them as best as you can, if that's what you want. And I think that's come at the mindset shift as well. Is it comes with making change comes with responsibility upon yourself. And it's why I don't really like the word accountability with a coach, because actually I feel like whilst by paying someone and having the advice, you're getting expert advice, which is the main crux of why you're getting a coach. But if you're only being accountable to yourself because you're accountable to someone else, I think there's a missing link here. And I think that the responsibility that it gives you, it should be always pushed back on yourself to firstly be responsible for yourself at whatever level that you can. And then secondly, if you do have a coach, then it does add that layer of responsibility, because you're having two as opposed to one. It's the same as, you know, if I don't want to go out for a walk in the morning with Luna, it comes 7:30. It's not, you know, I could sit in bed and not walk for an hour because I don't really have a goal of needing to do any more steps. But it's my responsibility to get out and do those steps, and also a responsibility to take her for her steps too, or for her walk in the morning. And it's that responsibility, because she's not here being accountable to me. She's not barking and saying, take me out for the walk, you shit you're a shit coach, you're a shit owner, take me for a coach, take me for a walk, you know, feed me, let me go for a wee. She's not saying that. It just adds that responsibility by her being there. So I think that the responsibility comes with yourself first, and then it moves through the levels of accountability and responsibility. I know that was a little bit off tangent, but I just felt like it needed.
No, I think you're right. Standards create confidence in the long term as well, right? So if you have those standards, like you said about from 90 to 60 kilos, with each kilo comes with also new confidence, but also from the standards and the work you're putting in. Like confidence only comes because of your work you put in. So like everyone who talks about, oh, I'm so confident now, it's because of the work they put in to get to that position. So it's similar to what you mentioned there. Like accountability is great, but it's also if you have those standards for yourself, eventually that's your own accountability, and then that leads to, okay, I need something else, but don't rely on that someone else in order to essentially that's it. And I think it's changing that paradigm and that shift. I think is going to be quite crucial as well in the long term.
100%. One of my, I guess, screening questions is actually, when people ask about like accountability, I said, of course, there's always going to be a level of accountability, but it's not my job to hound you down to make sure you've done all of the things. Like that's your job to tell me what you have or you haven't done. So it really is about like owning what you're doing and also owning what you're not doing. I don't like to tell people off. I'm like, I think you will be the first person telling you off before I even have to. So, that responsibility of ownership, really, because that's what it comes down to, owning whether you do it or not. That is really the key thing. But then taking obviously more responsibility towards what you want, knowing that that's the outcomes that's going to, or like that's the actions that are going to get you where you want to be, compounded in time. And as you say, like this, I think, and this is what I say to my clients, like discipline is the greatest source of self-love that you can give yourself, because it really means that you're willing to do the work that you don't really want to do, but you do it because you want it for yourself. And that's huge when people can see that oh, it's not always about what I feel like doing, it's what I believe is the right thing to do for what I want for myself. That's the difference that makes the difference. It's not about I'm feeling up for it today or I'm not feeling up for it today. It's like, okay, what am I supposed to do today because I want something?
Yeah, that's absolutely a bar. That's so true. And I think the need for so effectively, what we do in our role above the health and fitness is exactly that continuum what you just spoke about there, which is someone taking complete responsibility and ownership, and everything goes into that. You just look at probably someone's journey over a 2-5 year period. It's taken them from a position of where they've probably passed off responsibility, passed off ownership, and then blamed it on other people, circumstances, situations, and then drip feed them over their own level of responsibility. And you start giving them responsibility and standards. You start giving them things that they should attain to and move to, problem solving when they don't do it. And over time, they take more inch by inch responsibility and ownership over a part of their own journey. And then the goal of long term is once you've given those base level responsibilities, then you add education on top, and then they can take more responsibility for their own journey. So what happens in 1 year's time? What happens in social situations? What happens in when they want to change nutrition? What happens on a cold, wet, windy night in Stoke and you don't feel like doing anything and it's shit weather outside and you haven't got any food in the fridge? That responsibility right there, you make a decision, and over time those accumulations of responsibility inch by inch that client gets from you as a coach is the guidance and is the goal of what we try and do. And that's where in 2 years time, 3 years time, they will take inch by inch their responsibility from you and their ownership from you, and they will be able to then fish on their own, be able to go on their own and make more decisions for themselves. And once they can make a base level layer of decisions for themselves, they have become self-sufficient, and they have come into the situation where they are the ownership, they are the leader, and they are the founding member of what they believe their standards and their responsibility. And then that's where they have their autonomy. So I firmly believe that as you mentioned there, that is exactly what the ownership is. Like, that's what we give people.
And that's transferable from other areas of life. I think we're talking about just in nutrition right now, but think about like if you're in a bad relationship. We've seen it how many times where people are like, they start something like this and they're like, okay, I'm now taking ownership of loads of different things. I'm going to take ownership of this now. It could be jobs as well at the same time, right? So it's that confidence that I talked about earlier, and then you mesh it with ownership. It's dangerous. It's a dangerous person eventually.
Yeah. When you've gone from a situation where you don't have responsibility, or you don't choose to take responsibility on anything, situations, home life, passing it off on parents, your husband, wife, kids, they're responsible for the way that you feel. Whereas actually you flip that and you become responsible, and you become, A plus B equals this is the way I feel because I did A and B instead of A plus someone else did B. Whereas if you take that responsibility, you can then control the way that you feel. As you said, actions and then confidence come from that. And then you take that transferable skill of being responsible, and then you see things in a different light, and then you can make different calls, whether that is relationships, whether that is jobs, whether that is going into a meeting more confident and able to speak the way that you want to speak. And then being able to take that responsibility of saying, hang on, well, actually, I don't believe in what you're saying. And for the last 5 years, 3 years, you probably took what that person is saying because you didn't have any responsibility to say back what you actually felt. So you can take that responsibility and then be the person you want to be when you look from what you want inside as opposed to what other people want you to be.
Yeah, and then just if we take the word responsibility and flip it around, it's your ability to respond. So, your ability to respond to anything. It's your responsibility, basically. So
Pew, pew, pew.
we just finished on that. I dropped the mic. Did you hear it?
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for listening in, guys. Next week will be another great podcast coming at you. I think that will be on my actual photo shoot day. So that will be interesting.
The shoot is back.
That's the actual shoot. We bring it back in. Yeah. But anyway, thanks for listening, and we'll speak to you again next week. Have a really good day.
Okay, guys.
Bye, guys.